The recipes brewed on this show are provided by HomebrewSupply.com. Fresh ingredients, best prices, and same-day shipping. Make your brew day better with HomebrewSupply.com. Hey, and welcome to the first episode of Recipe Recap. This is a new show or segment where we're doing weekly episodes about the beers we're brewing and discussing the recipes, where at homebrewhappyhour.com you can actually get the recipe that we're discussing. This week for our first episode, we're going over the Fat Tire clone that Mr. Carlson down there brewed. James.
Super simple. Love doing it. Had a good time with this one. This was one of the few ones that I don't think we had any issues.
Which is impressive.
An issue, but it was very minimal.
Yeah.
We can talk about that all day long. We probably don't need to.
Well, I was going to say, the good thing about this show, and I'm kind of being ironic because I told y'all beforehand, this show, we don't have to do small talk. It's not a normal show, and here I am doing small talk. So let's get right.
Because you can't help yourself.
I know. Yeah. The feedback and comments section.
Yeah, what'd that guy say?
Yeah, he said I think he said I'm the best ever, is what I heard.
That's what I thought.
It was in a different language, though. I don't speak it. Let's jump right into it. So, James, what made you pick the Fat Tire clone? Let's start there.
Well, Fat Tire, for a lot of people, is probably their first craft beer they've ever had that went, whoa. I was on a date the other day, and the person I was with, she wasn't familiar with it. She wanted to order Coors Light. So I said, why don't you try a Fat Tire? She loved it, by the way.
Good.
Loved it. So that's kind of our gateway beer.
You've converted another one.
Yeah. So I thought, what better beer to try than probably one of the first craft beers a lot of people in the United States have tried. I know I loved it the first time I had it. I thought, my God, what is this? It's good.
Yeah.
It is good. And it's appropriate that we do it because in our area, every state has their own kind of gateway where we could say Shinerbach.
Yeah, definitely. That was for me.
For the longest time. Yeah. Real Ale is becoming one with Fireman's 4.
Oh, that's a good beer. Yeah.
But I think universally, I don't know their distribution history. Fat Tire has been around in Texas since I've been old enough to drink.
Yep.
And that was always, when you got tired of Shinerbach and Fireman's 4, then Fat Tire was up next in regards to give me one of those. And
you know what else? It was probably one of the first commercial ale beers I ever had.
Yeah, it was one of the first beers besides the Mexican beers, which were all lagers, that were really craft beers, maybe Shiner and this. And yeah, it's pretty incredible. We actually toured New Belgium one time, and Matt Meadows, who's their draft beer specialist, took us through the place, and they had these running around, going really fast on the conveyor, and he brought one off the line, and we had one off the line, and I told him at the time, I said, I actually kind of got burned out on Fat Tire at one time because it was the only beer you could get in most bars, and what's amazing is that I really enjoyed that one, and I have to tell you, James, pretty damn incredible. Look at that color.
Isn't that amazing?
I'm going to go smell.
I'm going to pour one.
Yeah.
This is from the bottle.
Yeah, I don't even know how Todd is distinguishing which is which. That's why I didn't pour mine.
And if you look.
Because I put the bottle next to the one that's.
Well, you're talking to the mic.
It's clearly not as clear as mine. But this one was only lagered, I think, 3 weeks. So we did 2-week fermentation, 3 weeks cold lagering.
So this is the Fat Tire's this one.
Yeah, the clear one.
Careful on the table.
So as you can see, there's a little chill haze, but nothing that a few more weeks of lagering wouldn't fix. But I'm surprised at how close the color is.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Very close color. So let's go over the grain bill.
Sure. It's real simple. And if you go to Homebrew Supply and go to their ingredient kits, you can pull it up. It's real. I say real simple. There's looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different malt additions. The bulk of it is going to be pale ale malt, 8 pounds, and then it's got 1.5 pounds of Munich, the light Munich, not the dark. 1 pound of caramel 40L. That I've played around this kind of recipe before. I think 40L is about the perfect caramel malt for beer because you don't get a lot of the coffee taste. So that kind of helps with the whole fat tire taste and smell and all that. Then you got 3 others. You got 4 ounces of Victory, you got 3 ounces of biscuit malt, and then you got 3 ounces of chocolate malt. Now that chocolate malt is what you taste in the fat tire. I think that is what makes fat tire what it is. It's the chocolate malt.
And this is a 5-gallon batch.
5-gallon batch
recipe.
Yeah. Now, we had to scale this up to 15 gallons on our system, so my gravity wasn't quite where I wanted to be, but I can tweak that and work my efficiency. Efficiency was a little low, not really sure why, but still pretty simple beer to brew. 2 hop additions. You've got Willamette or Willamette, however you say it. There's a 1 ounce to 60, and then there's a half an ounce at 5 minutes. So the whole boil, you got 1 ounce for a 5-gallon batch, and then 5 minutes before the end of the boil, you got a half an ounce. Super simple.
You know, one other thing I would say that when, you know, he's talking about how simple this is, but if you remember, Matt Meadows, when we did take the tour, said that this was the hardest beer for them to brew consistently. He said that this particular beer was one that challenged them the most,
right?
And getting a consistent batch every time. And I have to tell you, seriously, James. Wow.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go back.
Try one and then try the other.
Unfortunately, because I'm an idiot, you said you put your bottle next to the one you poured.
I know which one it is. This is the fat tire.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I didn't say anything because I didn't know. It's
damn close.
It's very close. So is it? What is it about? I mean, I know you said the chocolate malt is kind of what brings it home.
It also adds the color.
Okay,
it gives it that amber color. If you didn't have the chocolate malt, it would not be like this. But if you notice, when you take a drink, that on the very end, you get that little hint of, I wouldn't say exactly chocolate, but a darker taste, if there's such a thing. But I think that it's a perfect combination of the right kind of roasted malts with base malts, and then who doesn't like a biscuit malt? I mean, that biscuit malt gives it that bready taste. So maybe that's why it's so hard to recreate every single time, because I mean, you've got 6 different types of grains, and you've got to mash at a certain temperature. You've got to lager. I'm really shocked at how close this is.
I'm gonna have to say that we're gonna do my beer next, and I'm not really sure because you have to set them side by side to really know. But I don't think I've ever had a clone that was taste this identical to the beer that it's a clone of.
So
wow.
I have to ask then: is it the recipe? Is it the brew day? Is it all of the above?
All starts with the recipe. It's got to. It's just like if you're baking a cake. If you put the wrong ingredients in it, it's not going to taste the same. And that's what's so hard sometimes.
I think it's the brewer, personally.
Yeah.
The whole point of this is you can get this kit and you can brew this beer.
Yeah, that is impressive. I'd like to know, on the brew day, scaling it up, does that present issues in regards to consistency, or is it
sometimes it can. You know, anytime you go bigger, there's variables that you can't anticipate. Yeah. And I think one of them was I hit the gravity supposed to be a little over 1051. I ended up with 1048 and 1053. And I ended up with 1048. And I think a lot of that was scaling up. So maybe I wanted to do a 15-gallon batch and could have ended up doing a 16-gallon. I didn't take good enough notes on that like I should have, but maybe that's why the gravity's off. It doesn't matter. Here's what I would do. If you don't quite hit the gravity, just boil down to gravity target. Or like me, it doesn't matter to me. If I'm in that range within 5 points, I'm happy with that. You know, I mean, I would rather have 16 gallons at 1048 versus 14 gallons at 1053. I'm more of a 4.5% beer guy. Anyway, I enjoy beer so much, I'd like to have more than one, but I don't want to have a strong beer that I can't. Because let's face it, hangovers suck.
What was your final gravity? What did it finish at?
It ended up at 1013, and that's about right.
Yeah.
If you look at on the recipe kit, it shows a target of 1012. So if you're within 1 point of target, you're doing good. Another thing that helps this too, and Todd, you can agree with me on this, time. Anytime you have darker roasted malts, the longer you can let it lager in the 35-degree range, the better it's going to taste over time. This was a different beer 2 weeks ago.
It really was, and we probably could have left it another week, but I was like, no, it's done.
Yeah.
Because we were ready to drink it. It's so good. And it will be better as it sits in the keg because we're not going to drink it in a week. In the next week, 2 weeks, it'll be interesting to see how much more it clarifies, and to pour another. I'm going to save a fat tire, and we'll pour another one in 2 weeks and 3 weeks and see what it looks like.
Yeah. The only thing I could say about this, and y'all can agree with me, it's a little undercarbed compared to the bottled fat tire.
No. You're always your biggest critic. It is great. I would not call that undercarbed, but
it's got a little more of a carb bite.
Yeah, but we were real nervous about carboning it more because we're so famous for overcarbing.
No, not we.
So if it sits in the kegerator, we just kegged it.
Yeah.
If it sits in the kegerator for a few days, it's, say we carb this to the equivalent of, if this was carved to the equivalent of 12 PSI, and this is at 10 PSI right now, it'll be there in a couple of days.
Yeah, it'll stabilize. It's much better to let it set and forget it than to try to get it there.
I would much rather undercarb one slightly than overcarb one.
Right. So Smooth Brew Day, what about fermentation? What yeast did you pitch?
We used Imperial. And we did the, I want to say we used House.
I thought you used House, but I didn't want to speak out of turn.
And it ripped through it. In fact, it was done in 7 days. I just went ahead and let it set. I think it's 65 degrees is what I had it at. I'm more of a colder fermentation guy because you get cleaner taste. But I will tell you, if you don't use Imperial House, you can do that. Just make sure you read on the yeast packet. It'll tell you the recommended temperature range. You don't want to get into especially warmer. If you get warmer, you have higher esters, and you may not turn out with the taste that you want. So
yeah, but if you get too cold, you
get slower fermentation.
I think as long as you stay in the range, you're good, right?
Yeah, I would say, if the yeast says 65 to 72, I would probably be around 68. 67. I just like fermenting a little on the colder side.
And fermentation was all done in the spiked CF15?
Yeah, we did the CF15. We have the spike system, and then we have a UBC chiller, and we're able to regulate that pretty close.
And all this will be in the show notes, which also emphasizing, because people ask us for recipes all the time, the recipe grain bill, if you don't want to get the kit from Homebrew Supply, it's in the show notes. So you can go.
It is, and it's also on Homebrew Supply's website on the kit. If you go down to instructions, the grain bill's listed there.
Exactly. So if you want to brew this yourself and you're like, I have this local shop next to me, or if you want to support Mr. Burns and go pick up the kit. Well, really though, too, the kit's great because it's all, I wouldn't say it's, for the all grain or extract, you open the box on your brew day, you just follow the instructions, and it's like Blue Apron, man. Mm-hmm. My dad and I love it. Like, we've been making good beer. People compliment us, and I'm like, I follow directions. So it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
Wrapping it up.
Well, I think when you say support Mr. Burns, I think it's important that we have pictures of our kids on this show going forward, because that's what we're really supporting.
We need help too.
Yeah, support us all, please.
Now, on this, I didn't mention this earlier, but this was recommended a single infusion mash at 152 degrees. Now, that being said, if you're a guy like me and you like to tweak and step mash, there's no problem in doing your beta first and then doing alpha. Just split that up evenly. So if you want to do the first step at 145 and then finish out at 25, 30 minutes and do 30-minute mash at 52 to 58, you can do that too. If you just don't want to mess with all that, this was done by the instructions at 152. But if you want a step mash, you're fine with that. Just do a traditional German step mash for this.
And I have to ask you, because it's the first episode, has it been hard for you to just follow the directions?
It's been very hard.
That's his biggest challenge. I can tell you that for sure.
I like to tweak stuff and sometimes it's not the best thing.
And that's one of the things we're really trying to do when we do this, is we're trying to brew the recipes exactly the way they are, even if we don't necessarily agree with them 100%.
Right.
Because the ultimate goal for Keg Connection and for Homebrew Supply is that if we don't come out with what we think we will, then we'll tweak the recipe, brew it again, and try to get it even better.
Yeah. Right. And obviously the comments below are reserved for you. If you've brewed this, if you have any ideas, if you have your own recipe, if you've brewed a fat tire clone that you want to share with us and we could try it in the future, we'd love to hear from you. Or you can just email joshua@homebrewhappyhour.com. So wrapping it up, let's give our quick review over it, starting with Mr. Burns. Compared to the real deal, where does it stand?
I don't know. I already drank both of them. But James, you did an excellent job. Seriously,
it was fun.
One of the best clones I've ever had in my life, where comparing them side by side, how close they are. It's amazing.
Thank you. I'm shocked at how close it is too. This is also one of the first times that I actually compared the original with something that I've tried to replicate, and wow, it's amazing how close it is.
It really is.
The person that did the homework on the recipe, they knew what they were doing.
Yeah, do we know? Was this Lorena?
It had to be Lorena.
It had to.
What else could it be but Lorena?
Yeah, she's good.
Oh, she is so good. So if you have any feedback on the Fat Tire clone, again, email me, joshua@homebrewhappyhour.com. Thank you for joining us for this first episode of Recipe Recap. Stay tuned for next week's episode.